Good morning. One thing is clear in the Peter Pan daycare controversy, and that is that the owner-operator has been highly unfairly treated in that her establishment was closed by arbitrary action and she was not told at that time, in fact until some time later, what the accusations and allegations against her were. Regardless of the rights or wrongs, that, in my humble opinion, was most unfair. I want to take you to another aspect of allegations of sexual abuse, which in the final analysis are equally unfair. And that is where what is in effect an anonymous complaint can almost wreck a family. An anonymous complaint of sexual abuse of a young girl by a father. I met such a man and I have looked into his case as much as I possibly can. And I want you to think for yourself what it would have done to you had it happened in your family. And just to whet your interest, here's what he said when I asked him the question on the overall effect of this unfair complaint. It's a dreadful emotional shock for anyone to be faced with what amounted to a false accusation.
The only thing I can describe it as is losing a friend or a family member to death.
And you will meet this family after the break. The Ministry of Human Resources has a dreadfully heavy responsibility when it comes to investigating complaints of child abuse of any kind. 25, 30 years ago, child abuse went untended altogether. And a number of deaths undoubtedly happened and lots of long-term damage was done because of the fact that MHR in those days was kind of tentative about questioning people over complaints of neighbours, for instance. As you know, the whole of our society is much more socially conscious now, not only about sexual abuse, but all kinds of child abuse. The problem is, what about the individual rights of the person who is unfairly accused? For prosecution in the court, this is just general background information, some form of substantiation and corroboration is required before there can be a criminal conviction. But as all of us knows, there is often a time when a child must be removed, because even though there is no corroboration, how can you get corroboration from a small child with no witnesses present unless there are physical signs? And ipso facto, there must be a machinery by which a child without court-type proof can be removed from that environment for its good. But then you put in helplines and you put in zenith numbers, and people can phone up and give anonymous complaints, and therein lies the danger. Anyone who wants to cause trouble can in effect wreck a family by a malicious, spiteful, unprovable allegation. In Victoria, the Ombudsman has paid very close attention to the rights of the individuals, and he has done 2 reports on how these matters are or should be handled. The present system is better than it used to be. There is a central index on which a visit to a family is recorded. And then there is another file somewhere else which may contain the details of the anonymous complaint. What happens, however, when a complaint is unfounded? Are the records destroyed? No, they are not. This man, whom for obvious reasons I'm not going to identify, came to me with his problem due to this anonymous complaint. And I decided to hide his face from you as I must, but let him tell you his story, as you will see, in his home, No name? Now, where were you when you got this first kind of horrifying phone call from the Ministry of Human Resources?
I was at work.
And what did the workers say to you?
They asked me to stop by their office.
Did they tell you why?
No, they wouldn't tell me at the time.
Did they tell you who it was about?
Yes, at first they said no, they wouldn't discuss it on the phone at all. Then, after much prodding, they told me it was about my daughter.
And you responded?
I was scared. I thought that something was wrong with her.
And did they tell you any more then?
After much prodding, they said that there had been a complaint about sexual abuse by me.
Of your daughter?
Of my daughter.
So next step was what then?
I said that I would pick up my daughter and I would come down to their office immediately and they could speak to her.
And the response to that?
Sorry, you don't have to do that. We've already spoken to your daughter.
Gosh. Now what about your wife?
I said I would pick up my wife and come down and they could speak to her. And they said that I didn't have to do that either because they had already spoken to my wife.
So they had an anonymous complaint, was it?
Yes. As far as I know, they led me to believe that it was an anonymous complaint, but they can't release any information whatsoever about it.
Now, when had your wife been phoned? The same day, or when had she been interviewed?
They went to work and asked her to go for a coffee with them, and they took her out of her job and interviewed her in a public restaurant.
That very same day?
The very same day.
And your daughter, when had she been seen?
She had been taken out of class and interviewed in a private room, but the teacher and the principal of the school knew why she was being interviewed and why she was taken out of class.
Now, you finally went down that afternoon to the MHR offices?
Immediately after I picked up my wife and went down.
All right, give me some detail of what happened. You picked up your wife, you went down. Where was your daughter? Still at school?
My daughter was still at school.
Right, and you went down to MHR.
And I went into the office. I was devastated. And they said that there had been a complaint about sexual abuse by me against my daughter, and that after investigation, they had found it to be an unfounded complaint, and that I should take comfort in the fact that I had been investigated by professionals and found to be very competent and loving parent, but that they're obligated by law from the time that they get a complaint that they have to follow it up.
One thing I want to get clear, do you have any, forgetting what you believe and I believe to have been a great injustice to you as we tell the story, have you any complaint about the way you were handled, or your wife or your daughter were handled, as it happens, by MHR?
I was
talking about the treatment at the hands of the workers who had the duty to perform.
Absolutely none. I have nothing but praise for them. They did a very good job, and when they realized there was no concern for my daughter's safety, their concern then turned towards me.
When you went down to that office finally, how long did the examination take? Did they cross-question you, or had they already established it was an unfounded, unsubstantiated complaint?
They had already found it, or discovered and realized that it was an unfounded complaint, and that their concern then turned towards me and my wife. There was no concern for my daughter then. Then they realized that, hey, this is going to disrupt your family life, and then they were worried about me.
It's a dreadful emotional shock for anyone to be faced with what amounted to a false accusation.
The only thing I can describe it as is losing a friend or a family member to death.
Now, what are the three categories of complaints that they deal with in this?
There is an unfounded complaint, an unsubstantiated complaint, and a confirmed complaint.
And you came under which category?
Unfounded.
Unfounded. Unfounded, unsubstantiated.
And confirmed.
And confirmed. So that's unfounded, unconfirmed, and confirmed, you might say.
Yes.
Three shades. Unfounded. Did you question them as to where the complaint came from?
Yes, I did.
What did they tell you?
They can release no information whatsoever about a complaint.
It could have been a malicious complaint for all you know.
Yes.
Could have been from somebody who didn't like you for some other reason.
Absolutely.
Had you any thought that anybody would make such a malicious, damaging complaint about you?
I can't think of anybody that could think of doing something like that, but people must do it, I'm sure.
Now, I don't want you to tell me and tear your heart and soul out, but has this upset you very badly? In what ways?
It's every time it comes in the news, it comes back to you.
When you see all this daycare stuff.
Yeah, it comes back, and it just doesn't go away. Every time you read about it or see it on the news, you go through all the bad parts about it again. If you lose a friend in a car accident, you think about the good times you had. You lost them, and initially you were hurt, but you think about the good times they had when it finally comes back to you.
Did you receive any cross-examination at all from the MHR people when you were in the office that day?
Absolutely none. Nothing but sympathy and support.
So obviously from their questioning or interviewing of your wife and your daughter, they decided there was no ground for any complaint whatsoever.
Yes.
Now, they shook hands when you walked out of the office, I presume?
No, when I left the office, he told me that his door was open, and if I needed to speak to him, just to come back at any time.
But you left that office thinking, oh, thank God, what a nightmare, but that's over, I'll forget about it.
No, it never goes away. You can't forget about it. Every time somebody doesn't make it to your child's birthday, you wonder, well, maybe the person across the street heard about it and is wondering whether there was any truth to it. Mm-hmm. It just never leaves you.
Now, you've been back to the Ministry of Human Resources. This was a goodly number of months ago, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Have you questioned them about what records they keep on this unsubstantiated, in effect, false complaint against you?
Yes, I did.
Tell me.
They told me initially that the report would be destroyed at the end of 1 year.
Uh-huh.
And that I could go in and see the report destroyed. Lately, I've checked into it
because the anniversary of the year was coming up.
Yes, it was.
And so you had a plan in your mind.
Yes, I did. And because it was in the news again, it was bothering me. So I phoned and made some inquiries and discovered that that file is not destroyed. It's kept at a place called a dead center, and it stays there for 7 years.
And weren't you planning to go on the anniversary of the complaint to make sure it was destroyed?
Yes, I was.
Did you?
I haven't gone yet because the anniversary hasn't come, but it's been a very long time.
Well, the Ombudsman done a couple of reports on this, and I made some inquiries. Did they mention the index to you at all?
No, they did not.
They keep an index, but the index shows only a service to a family. It doesn't give details of the complaint, and that stays on that index. And there is a file somewhere which is live for 2 years and dead for 5 years after, to which nobody has access. Do you think that's fair to you, that your family name should even be on an index for an unsubstantiated complaint of sexual abuse of your daughter?
No, I do not. I feel that if the complaint was unfounded, as they found it to be, that the file should be destroyed immediately. There's no need to keep it.
Would you sleep better at night if it was?
Maybe a little, but it still will never leave.
So there you have an unfounded complaint, which is now recorded on a central index, but merely very simply, without any detail, that a visit was made to that family. Somewhere else, as I gather, there is a file, which is kept 2 years live and 5 years dead under the government regulations for files. The Ombudsman is keeping a very close eye on this, and I think MHR are too. But my opinion is quite simple, that where there is an unfounded complaint, where MHR, the investigators, have no doubts whatsoever that it is an unfounded complaint, that no record should be kept. I think that the person who has suffered from the false allegation deserves that at the very least. Next, we're going to turn to an aspect of the medical service plan after the break. The government in Victoria is obviously and patently very worried about its finances, and it's even more worried about the cost of the medical services plan, which is why I'm going to ask a question. Under our old system of That's a Fair Question, will the medical services plan pay if I go to my medical doctor or chiropractor for preventive treatment? And the answer is a clear and simple no. The medical services plan do not pay for preventive treatments. I raise this matter because a chiropractor in Kamloops, Michael V. James, Doctor of Chiropractic, has been sending letters to his patients, which I find quite interesting. And the first letter says, "Dear patient, we have noticed that you are overdue for a spinal checkup. It is our desire to take the best possible care of you. For this reason, we are encouraging our patients to embark on a preventative program of monthly chiropractic checkups. Damage may be occurring even though pain or other symptoms are not yet felt. Regular chiropractic treatment helps prevent the course of progressive disc degeneration which might otherwise occur. Remember that even the best doctor in the world cannot unboil a hard-boiled egg. Never neglect your health. It is up to you. Please call and arrange for an appointment. We look forward to seeing you this coming week. Yours for better health, Michael V. James, DC, Kamloops." So I spoke to Dr. James in Kamloops, pursuing my normal inquiries, and he tells me that he sends out another letter which goes like this. "Dear patient, we miss you. Do you know it's been more than 2 months since you've had a checkup? Please schedule an appointment for a spinal checkup and have a great day." And I wondered what's going on, because to my knowledge, and I have since confirmed, preventive treatments under the MSP are not paid for by the plan. So I phoned up Dr. James, and he told me that he has opted out of the plan. So I said to him, "Well, how do your patients pay you?" He says, "I don't care how they pay me." And he added, "I give them a form when they come to see me that they can send to the government." And I said, "Do you tell your patients that preventive treatments are not covered?" And he said to me, "Nobody has ever told me," that's Dr. James, "that they weren't covered." He says it's between the patient and the insurance company. And his own experience, as he related it to me, was that he went to see the doctor the other day for a medical checkup, and he didn't charge anything. And that someone he knew had gone for a pap smear, and they weren't charged anything. So the situation about you, this is generally speaking, is that if you go for a physical checkup and you say to your doctor, "I want a checkup," or "I want a checkup for this insurance policy," that is not covered by MSP. You are supposed to pay that yourself. If you go for a pap smear, however, that is an approved item in the schedule because of its known preventive worth. The same, I would suggest, does not apply for preventive checkups on chiropractic or anything else. Now, presumably, Dr. James's patients fill in the forms, send to the government, and they get paid from the government. I'm merely pointing this out so that everyone, chiropractors and doctors and everybody else, realizes that preventive treatments are not covered. And the letter that Dr. James set out is, "We are encouraging our patients to embark on a preventive program of monthly chiropractic checkups." So it's a matter that you should know about. You can't go on MSP to anybody, whether you think that's right or wrong is beside the point. The law is that the government will not pay for preventive checkups at any time. And I have asked the Chiropractic Association if they will please let me know if they consider this kind of form letter sent to patients by at least one chiropractor are ethically proper and desirable, in these days especially when the costs of medical health are under a very sharp scrutiny. I mean, I'm quite sure that not even the best doctor in the world can unboil a hard-boiled egg. Now, still on my TAFQs, and this is the morning we're going to give you decent time for a free-for-all, a very interesting aspect, and I shudder to raise it, but I must, came up about abortions. And I have a question here from a listener. Would Medicare still pay for abortions if it did become solely the woman's choice? It's very interesting. you know, if the pro-choice people were to win and the woman gets total control of her body, would it then be covered by MSP? Because that would be then elective surgery. At the moment, abortions are approved by a committee of doctors, and regardless what you think of the rights or wrongs of abortion, an abortion is done in British Columbia for therapeutic reasons. And the total cost to the MSP for abortions last year was not that much, and I'm in favour of some types of abortion, about $1.25 million. But the question does arrive, if it became pro-choice, would it be covered by MSP? And I would suggest to you that legally, under MSP at the moment, it would not. But I don't see even a hard-pressed social government, social credit government, with its right-wing supporters taking it out of coverage under the medical service plan. Now, here's another tough cue. I'm going to go to some letters and phones in the next section. MHR is going to deduct $10 from my welfare each month to make up the security deposit on my apartment. Is this right? Well, the MHR policy on damage deposits has been in place now for 2 years. If a client can't get a rented apartment because they can't put up the deposit, MHR will put up the deposit for them. But when and if the deposit is returned, the money must go back to the government. But since in the experience of MHR workers, many people were moving and not returning the deposit, social workers are now allowed, have been for 2 years, to nick your monthly check at $10 a crack in order to get the money back. Here's one that we asked for questions on ICBC and we got a whole flood of them. But here's one I'm going to use. Why won't ICBC give me a courtesy car while mine is being fixed? If the accident is your fault, you won't get a courtesy car. If the accident wasn't your fault, you might get a car if you can prove it's impossible to get to work without it. But you can buy loss of use insurance along with your ICBC insurance. The cost is about $30 a year and covers you to a maximum you drive or leased car of $400. But the common sense thing to do is after an accident to get your car fixed perhaps at an auto body shop that gives you a free courtesy car as part of their service. Next, some letters and your phone calls after the break. I just wanted to throw one letter at you to give us a little bit of a laugh this morning, perhaps, because one tends to get heavy on a free-for-all. Webster, look, you old curmudgeon, if you'd go to a hairstylist, get rid of that brogue, maybe a plastic surgeon, and spend the next year watching tapes of Donahue for 16 hours a day, you might get somewhere in the TV interview business. My God, man, you just come right out with your opinions. You could at least give me the courtesy of insulting my intelligence so I'd have something to rankle at. Jack, I'm an idea person. I've got it, and all I want is the American franchise. The Webster School of Tact. Browbeating 101. Advanced snide rejoinders, etc. John Stoll, Anacortes, Washington. Yeah, I really get some beautiful hate mail, I'll tell you. Well, I said this morning I was going to devote a lot of time to a free-for-all, so here goes. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have a 6-year-old son, and he has never been abused or anything.
Uh-huh.
I was reported to MHR twice, and he has a disease that when you touch him or play with him, that he leaves black and blue marks.
Uh-huh.
Had him checked by physicians here in Vancouver and also Toronto, and he's born with it.
And so?
But I was almost taken jail for it.
What happened to your family?
It's been a pretty mix-up.
Were you charged with some offense?
Yes, I was.
And were you acquitted?
No, I was acquitted. I'm no longer with my wife. I'm no longer with my family. but because of him, it's a skin disease. They say he will grow into it.
I'm sorry I haven't got the time or the facilities even to look into it, but if what you tell me is correct, I feel a great sympathy for you, son, and thank you for your call. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the assistance that you gave me out. I phoned you a couple weeks ago about ICBC, and they're charging me for an insurance claim that my father had.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
Yes, it was a good one, Jack. I finally got some action out of them, and I appreciate it.
As a matter of fact, no, I'll just do this without the telemation. This man asked me, he said he'd had an accident with his father's car, he wasn't at fault, but they wouldn't pay. Oh, there we are. I had an accident with my father's car, I was not at fault. ICBC is refusing to pay until I pay $2,000 I owe them for points. Can they do this? And my answer was, no. They cannot refuse to pay under the conditions you told us, as long as you did not just transfer the car to your father's name in a transfer of convenience. Did you win that little battle?
Yes and no, Jack. Now I have to prove the liability in order for me to recover, because they're going to charge me the 35%, or 35%, yeah.
Oh, that's different, that's different. But in the meantime, you've got out of your problems mostly.
Mostly, yeah. It's all been covered now, and...
In other words, if your car was in your father's name, was always in your father's name, they can't refuse to fix it because you owe them money for points.
That's right.
Goodbye, and thanks for calling. Go ahead from Prince George.
Yes, morning there, Jack. There, the problem with that I have right now is that the apprenticeship program there. Like, we have a young fellow there that's going through for an apprenticeship, plus other people. And the thing that bothers me is that our system, once they start them out in their trade system, they let them drop after 2 or 3 years because they start taking someone, let's say, into a $15 bracket that time, which started out at $7. They then take in turn and hire some more new apprentices at, say, $7 an hour.
What you're talking about is the old cheap labor apprenticeship racket, where they start them off at a low rate, but as the rate comes up, as if coming up to be a journeyman, they'll lay them off and hire some more cheap ones.
Yeah, that's correct.
What trade is your buy-in?
I'm not complaining about that point, Jack. It's the point that I'm trying to is why do they not have to be obligated, or the unions or the management or whatever it is, they're always crying about not having the proper talent at a rush time. Why do they not have to take them through on a 4-year course or a 5-year course, whatever it is? Why should they not be obligated to take that individual through?
Right. You may recall that when the Hydro was laying off people, we had a great to-do with the Hydro about chaps who were within a few months of getting their journeyman's tickets, and they were laid off because of lack of work. Some of them did manage to get it. Economic downturn, there is no protection against the foreshortening of apprenticeship's time, and I don't think it's fair. Go ahead, please.
Morning, Jack.
Morning.
Say about this child abuse stuff. It seems to be nothing more than a witch hunt gone wild. Tons of innocent people are being castricized and cornered, all because a little disciplinarian action by them is seen to be nothing more than physical abuse or torture on some scales, I guess. I sure wish, they do something serious about this and get to the point on it, and perhaps have a proper licensing system better than what they have already. But aside from that point, just on the lighter side, I don't know how tight or how far in advance your schedule is, but gee, this Steve Farnio thing with him caught in this controversy about Wayne Gretzky, we seem to have two sides of the story here, one by Winnipeg newsman John Trethewey, a Vancouver native on one hand, as that too, and Steve Farnio, a guy who's actually trying to do some good for the country, and for the many people stricken with cancer. And it looks like Trethewey has nothing more than torpedoed this entire run for cancer, and not only that, is not only ruining Steve Farnio's reputation in the process, but that of Terry Fox. Nobody's going to remember this run for Canada for what it's worth. It's going to be a Wayne Gretzky wimp storm.
I wish,
I know you're in Vancouver and, they're over in Winnipeg, but gee, it seems like a real shame.
I do not think it will materially damage Farnio's magnificent effort.
I sure hope not.
I would say this, though, that reporter should have kept his pencil off his paper and his mouth shut.
All for the sake of a story and to get his name in a whole bunch of papers.
I do not
really
think.
Disgusting.
I think if I'd been there, I would have exercised my own selfish right of self-censorship if he said it at all.
well, if he said it, perhaps maybe he
look,
should,
I say some terrible things about people, but sometimes when I say these terrible things, you can see the smile on my face when I say it.
Oh, keep
I
smiling,
might, for
Jack.
instance, say right now that Steve Wyatt gives me a pain in the neck, or Schneider.
Well, he does a good job on your
And,
program.
yeah, and I'll say
Congratulations, and keep
Schneider
it up,
is so difficult that there are times that I could throttle him, but the fact remains is that they're both great guys who don't laugh, Schneider. Schneider?
Anyway, great, Jack. Get to some other calls.
Just a minute, I want to see Schneider's face. Oh, you're ugly. Take the camera off him. Too much of a good thing. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I'm calling in regards to the first piece you had on this morning about MHR.
Speak up a wee bit.
I'm calling about the first piece you had on this morning about MHR.
Yeah.
It was nice to see someone that got treated fairly by MHR. Last fall, I lived a 2.5 month nightmare, personally, with my wife regarding my own children.
What happened?
I was accused of sexually molesting my daughter. After about 3 weeks, it came out that she had been molested, but it wasn't me. It was a friend of hers that had done this to her and told her that if you ever tell the truth, you will go to jail. And when the MHR people came and questioned her, there was a uniformed police officer and the social worker. And when they asked her the questions, she was scared of what they were going to do to her.
How old was she?
She's 5.
Oh, my goodness.
She told them that I did it because she was afraid of going to jail. In the end, it came out that it wasn't her, or it wasn't me that did it. It was her little friend that had played with her.
Oh, dear.
And I had to go to a psychiatrist, and I had to take polygraph tests. I got a good lawyer. I went through a 2.5 month nightmare. I couldn't live in the home. My family stood behind me. Everyone that knew me closely and personally stood behind me. In the end, MHR backed off. They wouldn't talk to me at all. They still won't talk to me. They say they want an evaluation of my daughter. That was before Christmas, and we've never heard from them since.
Wow. And did the police finally confirm to you that they'd got the statement from some other little person?
No, they've never investigated it at all.
How did you find out that it was this little friend of your daughter's?
Because my daughter came out with it eventually. After about 3 weeks, she started to talk about it and tell the truth.
Oh, my goodness, what a nightmare.
She was afraid that if she told the truth in the beginning, she would go to jail. It was a uniformed police officer.
Yeah, I get the message. Well, you have, sir, what you tell me is correct, man. Total sympathy, and I thank you for calling us this morning. I'll be back after the break. Phones this segment. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jack, how you doing?
Good.
I'm phoning about something I read in the paper the other night about the woman down in Howen, Nelson, that was attacked, and apparently some people, motorists, stopped in their car and
Wouldn't
I don't know
help
how many
her.
it was, but they stood there and watched.
52-year-old woman, I think it was.
57, and she was attacked and robbed, knocked over a fence or something, and the people watched as this took on, and nobody assisted her until the guy took off, and somebody walked over and gave her an umbrella and offered a quarter. And I think that, I don't know what circumstance as far as weather, but I think that's pretty gutless, so to speak. And I'm wondering if there's anybody listening who was there watching, how they would feel if it was either their wife or their mother. Now, another question I have to ask, and I'll hang up afterwards, is I phoned you, I guess, 2 months ago and wrote you a letter about ICBC.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember? I'm in a wheelchair.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever get the letter?
Wheelchair letter ICBC?
Yep. I'm a quadriplegic.
I'll have a look and see if we can find it, because we went through all the ICBC ones, and if I have, I'll do it on the air this morning. As far as the other thing's concerned, That's a New York syndrome. People get afraid.
Yeah.
It's not like a small community where people will go for broken help because they know the cast of characters involved. But when you look at some of the coverage of some of the murder trials and drug trials in this town, there's nothing that doesn't happen, that happens in New Jersey, that doesn't happen here in spades with hitmen and killers and poisoning plans and chopping people's arms off and whatnot. It's just appalling. But there's still no reason why, if you're not fit and healthy, you can't go to the help of somebody on the street in a case like that. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Jack.
Hi.
I'm phoning in response to your MHR segment this morning.
Right.
I myself had a very bad personal experience with them over the Christmas holidays.
Uh-huh.
My 17-month-old daughter was apprehended on suspicion of child abuse, and it was taken to court on the 24th, and they had no evidence. The judge threw it out of court, had her ordered returned to me. She was apprehended from my home, from a homemaker when I wasn't home, no less. There was no one here. I had a note that was 2 inches wide by 4 inches long, just a scribbled piece of scrap paper.
What were the allegations? Or you see, were you charged?
I was not charged.
You said it went to court.
It went to court for apprehension. They were trying to keep her in
under the MHR regulations.
I beg your pardon?
Were there any witnesses?
To what? To the
child abuse?
No, there was nothing. They had no former, what do you say?
Who made the complaint?
A facility that I go to, a counselor from a facility that I used to go to, Project Parent West.
Have you had lots of problems?
With my child?
No, with yourself.
Well, I have the normal amount of strain that anybody else has.
You know, if what you tell me is correct, I'm totally with you, but I hope they don't seize babies merely on nothingness.
I realize that MHR does a very valuable service. There are children out there that do need to be protected.
Oh.
My point being, Jack, that the families and the parents of these children have no recourses. Once your child has been apprehended, you do not have anything to do, any decisions on court dates. They will not tell you what. If your child is taken into custody, you will not be allowed to know where they are. You will not be. I asked my worker, can you at least dial my phone number, let her hear my voice on the phone? That was not allowed. I mean, and I feel that there are some times when they just don't do enough of that investigation beforehand.
You've got the baby back now.
I do. I got her back Christmas Eve.
And everything's okay.
Other than the fact, like your first gentleman said, it never goes away.
Never goes away.
MHR, and they said that, like you said, these are on the files. If anything, even though that I was proven innocent, that my child is not an abused child, that I am not an abusive parent by any stretch of the imagination.
I know. But thanks for your call and the best luck. You don't want to frighten it. I mean, you can't frighten MHR off, but it's such a delicate balance that are almost bound to be injustices on occasion. But I can think of some horror cases where MHR in the old days didn't act. My only basic suggestion this morning is that where there is clearly an unfounded allegation, the file should be destroyed. Go ahead, please.
Well, Mr. Webster.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm calling. I hope that possibly maybe I can help a few people understand. Okay, it's happened to me. We've been reported now a couple of times for child abuse, not sexual abuse, but child abuse.
For beating the kids?
Yeah.
And you're guilty of some of it?
Abuse, like, say, neglect and...
Yeah, well, that's fairly easy for human resource workers to verify, isn't it?
Right, but they go and they still, a neighbor can call, and the first thing you know, you have a social worker or somebody from the MHR at your door.
Yeah, I know, but I don't...
You can't, if you ask them who called...
They won't tell you.
They won't tell you, but they can only do that 3 times, and then you are entitled to go and know who went and is phoning.
Okay, I didn't know that, but I'll check it out. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Good morning.
I sure appreciate your program.
Good.
Mr. Webster, you've had Jack Monroe on your program quite a few times, and I'm an IWA member.
The Monroe-Webster show, yeah.
Yes. Pete and repeat.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we've been phoning, me and quite a few of the fellows that are in logging, been phoning and asking him about why he has to have, or not he, but why they don't hire through the union. I've been a member for over 25 years, and it seems to me that this is ridiculous that we have 3 hiring agents downtown, and they seem to just hire and pick and choose whoever they want.
The IWA does not have, nor has it ever had, a closed shop union hall hiring system, has it?
That is true.
And you want to see that in the IWA?
I certainly would like it, because I've been hiring out through these hiring agents for the last 25 years.
You mean the old Loggers Agency?
Loggers Agency,
Blacks.
DeMars, and Dave Body.
Right.
And I know all of them quite well personally, and it seems to me in the last 2 or 3 years that 1 or 2 of them have started up with a clothing store, and if you don't buy clothes, you don't get a job, and I've been unemployed for 2 years myself.
Oh, and if you don't buy your clothes at their store, they don't send you out on an assignment for a logging job.
This is about the way that it's going right now.
Well, that's certainly something Monroe should be looking into. Now that he's not involved in the BC Fed and he's got half his day free, maybe it's time he looked into that. And I'll certainly ask the big 6'4" gangling union leader.
I know him personally, but you can't get a word edgewise in with him.
Neither can I, but I do a little better than you do, maybe.
Yes, you're really good at it, Jack.
I'll ask him.
And,
by the way, what do you think about the IWA keeping the money out the BC Fed? Good or
that's terrible. That's just like a little kid. You know, you got 2 pieces of candy and I want 3. That's wrong.
You're against Monroe on that?
Oh, certainly I am. Certainly.
Fair enough. I'll put that to him, too. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you about an incident that happened to myself and my husband in 1982 about this child abuse deal.
Gosh, I didn't realize I was opening a whole hundreds of calls. Carry on.
Anyways, my son was attending a daycare center in Coquitlam.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was we were going through a lot of problems with behavior problems with at the time he was 4 years old.
Uh-huh.
And I, in turn, my husband had given my son a couple of spanks on his bummy. And what happened was I turned around and phoned the daycare supervisor and told her there was a faint blue mark on his bum and told her what it was all about. The following day, she in turn took my son in front of 3 other daycare workers, pulled down his pants, showed the daycare owner of the daycare, and she had told her that it was not child abuse. She understood the whole thing, what was going on in my family, and she in turn reported us to the child abuse authorities. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really feel that I am a child abuser. She in turn turned around and, has caused a lot of mental anxiety for myself, my husband, my family. We've been undergoing all kinds of, we had to go to mental health. I wrote a letter to the ombudsman. We still see psychiatrists till today. She's really destroyed my reputation. We went to see the supervisor up at the daycare, up at the Human Resources office. He in turn said that the complaint was substantiated. There was never anyone that ever seen my son. No one has ever talked to the daycare owner. No one has ever turned around and even bothered to hear my side of the story.
There was one bruise, is that right?
Very slight. It looked like he fell down. No one would have ever said anything if I didn't tell them.
Well, that's a nightmare too, love, which probably, if what you tell me is correct, is unjustified, and you're still going to psychiatric treatment, still seeing these people.
Yes.
How's the wee boy now?
Pardon me?
How's the boy?
Oh, he's fine. But come to find out, all along, he has what's called Tourette syndrome.
Uh-huh.
Causes him to lash out at people. He has like a barking sound. He has what's called like a tic disorder. And the psychologist that I see now, he doesn't even feel that this was a child abuse complaint.
Good, ma'am. Best of luck and sympathy. That's all I can give you for the moment, but a lot of people are opening my eyes this morning after the break. A couple of weeks ago, we gave you a report of the rather ludicrous situation in North Vancouver where the guy moves into his new house, his neighbours are getting mail delivery, and he's not getting mail delivery. So, to refresh your memory, are you entitled to get your mail delivered or not here?
When this new subdivision opened in North Vancouver this winter, Danny Keeble assumed his new house would be getting regular mail delivery, just as his neighbors do. I see right behind you, as I just came in, that he's conveniently given you a mail slot.
And it's within the specified distance from the sidewalk.
So it's all according to code?
Yes.
But no mail?
No.
So is there a solution? What have the post office people told you?
We have to have our mail address general delivery.
Mr. Keeble's special circumstance, we're referring to Ottawa.
So when will we find out whether the people in Ottawa say, yes, we'll deliver mail to Mr. Keeble?
In 2 weeks.
In fact, Bob Pearson was good to his word. Not 2 weeks later, these group boxes were installed, and Danny Keeble has his own lock on one of them. It's called Suburban Service. They usually reserve it for places out in the valley, but they put the group boxes in here so he can get mail delivery.
But the other people get the postie to put it through the letter boxes.
That's right, but
he doesn't.
He doesn't. The odd thing is that since '78, apparently, there's this policy: no new mail delivery. It has to be these group boxes.
So the mailing men stop at the house 50 feet away.
Yeah.
And he has to go over and unlock his box.
Yeah, he has to
and
unlock his
is that delivered by the mailman to the locked boxes?
Well, very interestingly, there was the union of letter carriers were very upset when we did this story because when they promised Mr. Keeble mail delivery through the boxes, apparently they had went to a They went to a housewife and offered her a contract to pick up the mail.
So the mailman delivered the letters to his neighbors, and a contractor delivers it to the box.
Not now. Actually, for the next few weeks, the posties will be delivering it to the box, but that's temporary. More problems ahead.
Hyundai. There was a woman who wanted her money
back. Wait a
back.
minute, let me correct you. Hyundai. Monday, Tuesday, Hyundai.
Did that woman ever get her money back?
No, not yet. Let's see that. Rhonda Sanderson bought a car, a Hyundai Pony, in 1984. This is her car right here. She had nothing but problems with it. Now she wants to get her money back.
Either my money back or a new car, and I didn't get anything.
Now we're going to see a Mr. Andy Holm. Have you ever dealt with anybody by that name here? We'll see what it... Now, you can't hold out any hope. I hope you realize this.
Okay.
Correct for stalling and rough running, correct heater operation, door doesn't fit, air and water leaks, check wipers, turn signals very slow, adjust all doors, adjust lubricator, heater control not working, car won't start, fuel pump not functioning, replace pump, turn indicators not working, adjust clutch, adjust tune-up, heat at heater when shut-off is not working. But I take it you'll give it your personal attention.
We'll give it our attention. From the company point of view, yes, we will go down there and we will discuss it with the dealer in question, and we will go over the situation to make sure that everything is done possibly to make Miss Sanderson happy.
So what do you think? Let me make you guess. Do you think she gets her money back for the car? What would you do? I'll tell you. No. The answer is no. They tell us that they've done absolutely everything they can for her. The dealer has gone overboard. She's got to stick with her car. She's got a contract, a purchase contract, that's it. So one success, we got Danny Keeble, his mail delivered, but poor old Rhonda Sanderson, she's stuck with her Hyundai Pony.
Fair enough. Thanks. What's your name again?
Schneider.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, this is Mr. Webster?
Uh-huh.
Jack Webster?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Are you Mr. Webster?
Am I Mr. Webster? Yes, I am Mr. Webster.
Okay.
And I am the son of Mr. Webster, and he was the son of Mr. Webster.
I want to know about people who are on portable oxygen. We are not allowed to drive our cars.
I should think. Well, that sounds kind of reasonable. I mean, if you're on portable oxygen, how can you drive a car?
Well, because you've got a unit with you, and they can stand in the car. We are able to function quite normally.
Ma'am, I don't want to be unfair to you, and I don't want to treat it lightly. So I'm going to put you on hold, and Ann Davidson's going to talk to you later on and find out what the particular problem is.
Yeah.
No, you got to be careful, these ones. I remember once making fun of a man who was hesitating in speaking to me. It turned out he finally got out he was a stroke victim. You know? Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack. I was wondering if you do a follow-up on the Meyer case, if you might consider talking to Jerry Bellett of the Vancouver Sun.
No!
Well, over the years, he's documented the case very well.
I know the Meyer case as anyone else knows the Meyer case. I have...
Okay, let me just say this.
No, I'm not even interested in it. I'll take a break. I just heard the new unemployment figures for British Columbia this morning, and we were told that they're down. They're down 1/10 of a point. They're down to 14.9%, I think it is. So you think you've got problems? Listen to what this woman is going to tell you. Go ahead from Jimenez.
Yes. I'm a single parent on welfare, unemployable for medical reasons.
Right.
Now, for 12 years since my divorce, I've worked hard to build up my credit rating and have an impeccable credit rating.
And your complaint is that the bank won't lend you any money?
Well, I have a loan at this time, but as of, I believe it was July last year, they will no longer loan money to people on low income.
Which bank is it?
Montreal or Bank of Commerce.
How much do you owe the bank at the moment?
Oh, 700 or 800.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not being brutal with you at all. Why would the bank, which is entirely in business for maximum profit, loan you money if you are single, medically unemployed, no prospects of a job, even though your credit is good? For instance, I can think of a number of notables who are presently being sued for millions, who, if they went to the bank today for money, would be told, no thank you, sir, you have no credit.
Right.
I mean, you can't expect charity from Canadian banks. All their money goes to Brazil, and we pay additional charges so that they can help to recover their bad losses and their silly international loans.
I don't see
problem.
why I should be paying for that.
Yeah, well, I'm paying for it, I know, and so is everybody else who uses a chartered bank in Canada.
I can go into any finance company and pay a higher interest and loan money.
I know, and you can leave what's left of your health behind as security.
Uh-huh.
Love, I wish I could help you, but I don't see, what do you expect somebody to do for you?
I just wanted it brought to the notice of people, you know.
Well, you see, you brought it to my notice, and I don't expect anything from banks. If you owe 180 million bucks, as some of people I know do, you can still live in your fancy houses, drive your Cadillacs, and the banks didn't call you loan because you owe them too much. But when you owe 20,000 bucks on your house, they'll seize your house and see you in hell because you're just a little guy. And that's how the banks work. Be kind to the big fellas and kick the devil out of the little fellas. And that's the truth. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to comment about last night's show.
My show last night?
Yeah, the piece about the Aurelia.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I agree with Marguerite Ford that I think the buildings should be saved.
This, for the benefit of dear listeners, my good friend Sean Rossiter and Schneider and Margaret Ford and Linda Moyer, I think it was the architect, are trying in vain to save the Aurelia, which was built when?
1903.
1903. Well, it used to be an old cat house, you know. Perhaps we should save it as the only downtown bordello of the old days. When I came here in 47, it was a place of frenzied activity, but it was also surrounded by gambling clubs across the road and illegal bars and steam baths used for sexual purposes. It was a delightful area. But I see absolutely no reason, and I repeat again, that if Rossiter and Ford want to stand in front of the bulldozers, I'll drive the bulldozer over them and through the Aurelia. Because the very practical reason to save the Aurelia, you've got to give the new Hong Kong Chinese owners full value for that valuable property.
Which is?
Oh, God knows how many millions at its highest possible use. No, sir. Down with the Aurelia. Destroy it. Go ahead, please.
Oh, good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I'd like to speak about the abuse cases.
Oh, dear.
No, not oh dear. I am a foster mum, actually, and I see sort of from sexual abuse, physical abuse, from the very small children up to 18 years of age. Now, the thing is, whilst I sympathise with these people, the accusations have been unfounded, can they make any suggestions as to where to draw the line?
Neither can I. I agree with you. It's such a sensitive area, and the protection of the child is the primary function, and we've had such a bad record of protection in the past that perhaps we've gone over a little bit. And the only modification I suggest is that in an unfounded case that the records not be kept.
Yeah, but you're saying that. Say 6 months, say it was proved unfounded, and 6 months later an incident happened and that child died or committed suicide, whatever.
Well, there was an unfounded case prior to that, not unsubstantiated. In fact, I could almost give you the exact classifications you've taken away the report. And it's a very, this Human Resources has got a very sensitive way of marking it. It's a wrong report. I'll give it to you some other time. I don't know what the answer is. I just don't know. But under our system of individual freedom and presumably justice, the way you face a totally unfounded allegation, the state has no right whatsoever to keep a record of it, and on that I will hold my ground. Next you're going to meet one of my favorite people. Does a better television show than I do, and with more panache too, even if he is almost as old as me. After the break.
Those dancing feet on the avenue, I'm taking you to 42nd Street.
I'm gonna do two here. Okay.
Well, I'm coming up to 67 now. I'll be signing another contract.
Yes? Good for you.
Just
That's
one
great.
year, though. Yeah. 20 hours, about 6.5 months a year.
Do you? That's good.
I also remember the...
Lots of people know my old face. And I only get annoyed when they come up to me on a ferry or somewhere else and say, used to watch your program, but I can't watch it now because you're up against Sesame Street and the kids won't watch you when they want to see Bob McGrath and Snuffleupagus.
Snuffleupagus.
Snuffleupagus. Did you dream up that silly
I
name, Bob?
didn't dream it up, no.
No. This is the Bob McGrath, and he's here for a reason. And this is Jack Bibby. You're the boss of Variety this year, is that right,
Well,
Jack?
chairman of the telethon, yes.
Chairman of the telethon. What year is this for the telethon?
This is year 19 for the telethon and year 15 for me.
Year 15 for you?
15 for me.
When is it on?
It's on Saturday night from 8 o'clock at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre through the network of BCTV.
Right. When is it off? We'll see if you know that.
6 p.m. on Sunday night.
Where is it coming from? BCTV?
Queen Elizabeth Theatre.
What is it for?
It's to help children with special needs raise money for children all over British Columbia.
And the organizations which specifically help, in case you don't know, are these?
Well, yes, those are the organizations that we are probably best known to in the Varieties world: Children's Hospital, research centres, etc.
Sunshine Coaches, BC Children's Hospital, Children's Variety Research, Ronald McDonald House, the Variety Electro-Limb Program.
That's a very exciting program.
Who's going to be the host?
We have 3 hosts. One, of course, is our local host, is Norm Groman. And we do hope that Norman will forecast the weather to be very miserable so that people will stay in and watch. We have 2 other hosts, Gloria Loring and Blake Emmons, who are returning.
Oh, the singer?
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
good friend Blake.
Isn't Gloria married to someone?
Yes.
Who?
Alan Thicke at one stage.
I almost said Hamill. It's Thicke.
Alan Thicke, right.
Yes.
Same first name.
All right. What are you going to do this year?
I don't know. I'm back till I get it right, I guess. I'll be singing on Saturday night, hosting some of the Sunday morning portion, and just generally doing what I've been doing
Well,
for 15 years, I guess.
if I were a character on Sesame Street, what would you call me?
I'd call you probably Oscar.
You think I look like an Oscar?
Not necessarily look like him, but there's a certain similarity in the personality at times that I think you'd associate with very strongly.
Mind you, Big Bird is my favorite.
Is he?
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear that.
Why?
He's a very gentle, loving sort of person.
Are you suggesting
No, nothing like that.
Come up here from Sesame Street to insult me?
No, well, I mean, I thought that's what we're here for. No, no. From Oscar, you always get straight ahead answers. He's the little green, excuse me, grouch in the trash can that tells it like it is. Yeah. And I think there's a certain affinity there that I think you'd like Oscar.
I'm sure there is. All right, talk. You talk. You do an ad-lib television program. I'm talked out
I don't
this
do
morning.
an ad-lib.
You
Somebody
do
writes-
so too.
somebody- Well, a little bit, but we're scripted pretty
Do you
much.
do one of these? Don't
Never
this-
cue cards. No, never cue cards or teleprompter.
Never that.
But we know what we're doing. I mean, you know what you're doing, but we have a very carefully put together show with from our research department.
How many years of Sesame Street do you know?
We just finished our 16th year last week. That's completes our 2,126 show, I think, something like that.
And you are an educational tool of media of the highest order.
I think so. I'm very proud of being with it. I really think so.
How many times a year do people come up to you and say, I used to watch you, Bob, and I used to learn to spell?
A state cop stopped me for speeding about 6 months ago, and as he was writing out the ticket, congratulating me on what a great job, he said, all my friends told me I learned how to write on Sesame Street. That's how much good it did to me as he handed me the ticket.
Normally you raise, what, a couple of million every year?
Well, we
I
never
can't remember.
We never set a target, Jack. We always hope to do better than last year. Last year we raised and importantly banked over 2.1 million. And so we're hoping that the generosity of the people of British Columbia will be shown again this year, and that we will exceed last year's
I believe
target.
one of your great successes is the percentage of pledges that come in.
Yeah, we generally average between 98 and 105% of the actual monies that are pledged. And that is because we go to a great deal of trouble to make sure the total is genuine. There's no point in putting up a total that doesn't mean anything. It's the children we're trying to help, and if you can't help the kids, you can't help them by a false total.
Are you raising anything special this year? Are there any special projects in the Variety Club?
Well, as you know, Jack, over the last few years, we have had high-profile jobs like the Children's Hospital and Research, and we thought it was about time that people realized that there is a world of variety that is not connected with those high-profile projects. And therefore, we're not featuring any particular project. We're bringing a different format, a different type of show. We hope that people will watch it. It's going to be a dynamite show. I'm really excited about the things that are happening. And particularly in the midnight hours, because we discovered between 12 and 7 o'clock in the morning, 50% of our viewing audience are ladies over 35. And so we are now catering to that, and from 12 till 2 we'll be bringing in a lot of the people from those shows, and we're going to
plan is to
nightclubs.
have people up all night.
Right.
Of course, we want to keep the momentum.
You know, one of the things I think, in addition to all the money and the projects that are happening, I think one of the wonderful things that happens as a result of this over the years is that there's a really changing and maturing attitude on people, towards people with a disability.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's very easy to say handicapped person, and that covers a very broad range, but Itzhak Perlman was on our show recently, and he did a beautiful piece, and we got talking about disabilities and handicaps, and he was saying that a person is only handicapped when he's trying to do a specific thing. Then he has a disability. He said, I can't run in a race, but let him pick up his violin, or let a person in a wheelchair go to a computer who's a whiz. It's only a disability at that point, but we tend to categorize, and I'm not sure it's a good idea when we say handicap, because it puts a lot of people with tremendous strengths in certain areas, perhaps at a disadvantage.
Yeah, that's a very good. You and I know, and you too, Jack, as well, that the attitudes towards those with special disabilities has changed, vastly in the past 20 years.
And I think this kind of an organization can have a great deal of impact on that, besides the raisings of millions of dollars for
Well, Bob, your myriad fans will be watching you on the telethon, which is from 8 p.m. on Saturday to 6 p.m. on Sunday at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre.
That's right.
Anybody's welcome to come down.
Oh yes, and we do want to emphasize, Jack, this is a live show. We have a live theatre audience, so we welcome people to come down.
We want mobs of people down there.
Well, we make a minimum charge on the Saturday evening.
How much?
$3.
Sunday?
Sunday is free from 8 o'clock
After
in the morning.
midnight?
No, it's till 8 o'clock in the morning. It's been 8 at
But
night.
when do you charge the $3?
From 8 o'clock at night, and anybody who comes in until 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. From 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, it's free.
All the Scotsmen will come on Sunday.
Well, we look forward to seeing you, Jack.
There, about 5 after 8, right?
Thanks for coming up again, Bob. It's
Thank
very
you,
nice
Jack.
to see you.
And
You
thank
too,
you.
Jack Bibby. And one last segment of calls after the break. This is my Friday look. Time for phone calls. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I enjoy your show. I've shut in now, Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud as a bell. What do you want to say?
I want to talk to you a little bit about that transplant from Scotland, that Keenan fella. He was saying the other day when I was watching you that he'd been all over British Columbia here and he thought that the forests were in beautiful shape, and he was really talking it up that everything was beautiful.
You're talking about Charlie Keenan, the former director of pollution control, one of the few outspoken opponents of Greenpeace, Watson et al. On some of the things I just love to hear him saying them.
Well, I personally think that he was full of garbage because I've been all over BC for years. I was raised here.
I know, but that's no measure. He was talking as a director of pollution control.
Well, just tell him to have a look around, up around
Tatler Lake.
Logan Lake and all through the Ashcroft country.
The fact remains is that if you're going to create an economy, you're going to cause some mess. The object of the exercise is as little mess as possible. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack. I'm phoning from Hope. You had Bob Naismith on there last week concerning Carolyn Mines. I was wondering whether or not Mr. Gillespie came through with his promise of payment.
I tried yesterday but failed. Matter of fact, I was going to phone Gillespie yesterday. I'm glad you called me this morning because I know that Bob Naismith and the others who hadn't been paid were to be paid by the end of the month. And the proposition was given to them, which sounded good. And I'll phone Gillespie this morning. I'm glad you called me to see if the money's been paid yet, because Gillespie promised us on the air of Caroline Mines that he'd pay the money. And I think Bob Gillespie's owed about $11,200.
Yeah, well, what I'm looking at, there's 100 employees out here that are owed approximately $300,000.
Yeah, you're talking about the unionized employees.
That's correct.
Well, the reason it came to my attention was because so many people made millions on Caroline on the market when it was up to $60. It just doesn't sit right with me.
No, especially whereas on the promotion part of it, they made most of their money. There must be some of that money around. They could at least come good for these people out here that are starting to lose homes and moving out of BC because of this. This is a lot of money. It's drug on for 5 months now.
Well, I'll see if I can get hold of Gillespie before I leave the office this morning.
Good, Jack. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning.
Can't hear you.
Hello?
That's better.
Yes. Yes, I'm calling about your program that you had on with Joseph Kaufman.
Yes.
And this was on
How to make $1 million in 5 minutes or less.
Yes. Well, I was quite surprised when I delved into this a little bit further. Their Canadian government is crying the blues about Canadian manufactured goods for distribution. And I phoned the Canadian Trade of Commerce, and they told me that he had wrong information, or he had false information, as a matter of fact.
No, they phoned me too, and they said that there was information available about goods exported from Canada, but not goods imported into Canada. That's what he said.
I phoned the Canadian Trade of Commerce, and I said that I had contacts overseas for carrying Canadian products. And I said, could you please send me out some literature? And they said, no, they could not. They have a booklet there, and the only thing that I could do is come down and take a look at one of their booklets.
No, but you couldn't get the booklet. That's a very good warning. Did you go to any of the things, any of the sessions?
No, I felt stonewalled. He said he couldn't give me out any information, that I would have to either phone Ottawa or write the Department of Trade and Commerce.
Well, certainly Mr. Costman made it sound very easy, but...
Oh, certainly he did. But my point is, if they're crying the blues for Canadian exports, why do they make it so hard for a person, pardon me, to want to who has a manufactured good and enable it to be exported? I can't understand that.
I know. I'll look into it one day, ma'am. I don't know enough about it at the moment. Go ahead, please.
Yes, bulldoze the Aurelia down.
Here.
I've still got ulcers from Sid Beach's tamale house from the late 30s. Thank you.
Good. I lost that reference. It was Sid Beach's tamale house. It was funny to somebody. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Morning.
It's in regards to ICBC. I have two problems. First of all, we had an altercation with ICBC in regards to safe driver discount. What happened was my wife was not entitled to a safe driver discount for the full 3 years, only 2 years.
Right.
So what happened was the fellow at ICBC told me that seeing I was the principal driver of the car, that she was able to get the 3-year safe driver discount on my name.
Right.
Because I used the car. Now, what happened was ICBC disallowed it, and I was on payment plan. So what they tried to do was they tried to take all of the money out of my account at once, saying that I made a false statement. Now, I have all the paperwork to prove this. I went to ICBC. They told me I had to go to the insurance agent.
We've only got 30 seconds. Have you got the final result yet?
No, and they tell me, basically they tell me they can't do anything for me, both of them.
Phone Bev Penhall at ICBC. Penhall. Bev Penhall.
Okay.
And tell them Webster sent you. Sounds like you've got a case for me. Well, don't know about this morning. After the break. Monday, we're going to take a detailed look at the budget problems at the BC Institute of Technology. Got to cut a lot of courses, it would seem, a lot of jobs, and what else, I don't know. Gordon Tom, the president, Greg Layton, the president of the Faculty Association, and a student representative at 9 a.m. precisely. Well, he's on another 5 fingers. Precisely.
We get more phone calls than any other show on this station, and also that our show is syndicated in Europe.
Can you just imagine if one day somebody tells him to push a button and he says, "Which is the red button?" You can have the donut in advance. Ugh. Carbohydrates. Disgusting. It's not Prettykin. That's a fatso donut. The good Lord, when he blew up Mount St. Helens, forgot to take out a pollution control permit. And I see that Sean and Linda are prepared to stand in front of the bulldozers. I'm prepared to drive the bulldozer over them. How do you face a false accusation of sexual abuse? Check at midnight.